Hey guys, good morning. How are you? I am having a very interesting string of synchronicities this morning, and I feel like if I don't get it out, it's going to escape into the ether. So, all these things on their own are relatively mundane, but when they started to stack up this morning, I knew that there was a message or some significance in it. The first thing that came across me this morning was a formation of geese that I saw in the sky. Now, I live on the East Coast. It is cold. I expect the birds to migrate, but I have never seen so many geese in a single formation. There must have been over 100. I've never seen such a thing. And geese talk a lot about migration. They talk about navigation. They talk about teamwork, things like conserving energy, things like reducing wind resistance. That's part of the reason why they fly the way that they fly. So on its own, that was kind of a nice little magical moment. But then I saw the word of the day come up on my phone, and the word was thither, to or towards a place. So now we have more of this sort of navigation and migration energy. And then I got a quote of the day on my phone by Mary Oliver that says, rules to life. Pay attention. This is probably a message for me. Pay attention, be astonished, and tell about it. It's like, okay. So I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about Mary, and I'm thinking about all of this sort of migration, and I'm wondering, like, what are these formation of geese called? Because I don't actually know. And they're typically called a team or a flock, but when they are flying really, really tightly together, am I gonna sneeze? Thank you. But when they fly really, really tightly together, they're called a wedge. So it's interesting because when I'm looking at the energy for the last few weeks, it has been like trying to trudge through mud with all of the retrogrades. Even as the planets try and turn direct, it's still like trudging through mud. And we've had these really big solar flares. The Schumann has been having her moments. And overall, there's sort of this feeling of like a collective melancholy, collective exhaustion. Like, I feel like I haven't had like the normal amount of energy that I normally would at my disposal. And again, some of it's autumn, winter almost in the northern hemisphere at least. So it's natural for the body to kind of try and pare down a little bit. But there is this sense of frustration that there have been a lot of things that you guys have been wanting to do, wanting to figure out, wanting to fix, wanting to get started on, and you just like haven't had the energy, or truthfully, like you probably haven't had the spirit, right? When you're looking at melancholy, sometimes it's this feeling of like a lack of faith and like a lack of hope, it's not just a lack of energy, but it's like kind of a lack of heart. And as I'm sitting here thinking about this, I'm realizing that formation of geese, like, it looks familiar. It was reminding me of something, and I realized it was reminding me of a rune, which is really unusual because I don't typically work with runes at all. You guys know me. And so I had to look into it, and there is this rune, Kinaz, which is this nice little goose formation figure, right? And it talks about knowledge and clarity and creation and growth and the harnessing of fire. So basically, kind of what I'm pulling in is there's sort of this, a little bit of like a collective migration, a collective exodus sort of out of this energy that felt really tough and really heavy. And like, it feels like the Seven of Cups, almost like brain fog, a little bit of confusion, frustration, not knowing, should I do this or should I do that? Not really having the energy for like either of them. And again, those really tight formations of geese, they're called a wedge. And so there is something about how like there has been sort of like a wedge between you and what you've been wanting to do, but there is kind of like this fresh fire, I want to say, that is kind of being put in like your individual lanterns. Because geese talk about like the conservation of energy, if you have been feeling really kind of like low and tired and you haven't had the motivation over the last few weeks, give yourself a break, cut yourself some slack. But when sort of this fresh fire falls in and kind of like lights up your torch, you also want to be mindful of conserving that energy, that you're putting it into things that you have been wanting to get done, wanting to get started on, wanting to finish, but you haven't been able to. There's also this big feeling of some of you have been fighting with your spirit teams, like your guides or your ancestors. You just haven't been on the same page. If that is the case, now is a good time to sit down and flesh it out, because there is a lot of guidance. There's a lot of intuitive nudging. Part of this formation is like they're trying to lead. That's why you showed me that on the TV. As I was coming in here to film this, there was something on the TV about like, when will the shortages end? So it feels like you are kind of being corralled into the direction either to, again, start or finish or, you know, like accomplish something that's going to get you to a place where there isn't as much shortage of energy, shortage of resources, shortage of inspiration, whatever it may be. But it's coming like by way of your team. So if you've been feeling a little bit at odds with them, or if you haven't been doing your meditations or doing your journaling or whatever it is that you do to connect to your team, your family, now is a good time to kind of put that back in rotation, because there's a lot of guidance and information coming in on what specific things you should be doing, right, to get to or towards the place that you want to get to, that you've been trying to get to, but having a difficult time doing so, again, because of a lack of spark, or because of a lack of hope, or just a lack of energy, or a lack of organization. Kines is also the 6th rune, I believe, and it just makes me think of the 6th house in Virgo. You know, it's the details, it's the day-to-day, it's work, it's all of that type of stuff. So pay attention to your dreams, pay attention to the guidance that is coming in for you. There is movement finally happening, and this sort of feels a little bit like a pre-Scorpio message. We'll have to look into Scorpio season a little bit more deeply, but it does feel like a bit of a Scorpio, pre-Scorpio message. So you may find an abundance of this energy coming in this weekend. If you thought, I'm just gonna have like a chill weekend, and then all of a sudden you have some clarity or you have some fire come back in, use it. Again, conserve the energy. Make sure that you're not like wasting it when you finally have it, right? Because you haven't had it in a long time, and now that it's coming back in, use it to, again, finish or accomplish, start whatever it is that you've been wanting to do, because it feels like you're going to be able to catch up really, really quickly. Pisces had some of this energy in their weekly reading as well, but it's going to allow you to kind of catch up. So again, sit down, make the intention to figure out with your team what your next steps are, what you're supposed to be doing. If you've been out of practice with your own personal spiritual practice, now is a good time to get back in. If you've been fighting with your guides, sit down, flesh it out, get back on the same page, because like movement is coming. And don't forget, Kines talks about clarity, and it talks about knowledge. You've been through a lot of experiences, a lot of trial and error and flight and failures, and now is a really good time to allow those to integrate and converge into like the best strategy. I have Athena right here, into the best strategy possible for you, so you can work smarter rather than harder, and you can get where you want to go easier, because the wind resistance is lessening. Very good. Very good. So this is what I have. I love you so much. Have a good day. Oh, and if you want a fuller breakdown on the energy for this weekend, I do weekly and weekend energy readings on Patreon every single week. Every single week. So if you want a deeper breakdown of this weekend's energies, go over to Patreon. It's already posted. I love you. I'll see you later.